By way of introduction, my name is Jon Sanderson from Veolia, and I just love district heating, basically. Very passionate about district heating, as you'll get to know in this next 20 or so minutes. So we recently presented some ideas to the NHS based around decarbonising their estates and taking advantage of district heating, which is, as I'm sure you're aware, receiving a huge amount of interest around the UK right now. So from the previous discussions, it became clear that there were really two clear and defined solutions available to NHS estates. One, to initiate a district heating initiative ourselves through identifying a heat solution, or two, to connect to an existing heat network should it be possible to do so in the local area. So through this little presentation, we'll explore those options a little further, but we'll start first with just a better understanding of district heating and the key benefits to it. So I mentioned that district heating was attracting a lot of attention, and of course it's always the case when there's government funding available, and right now there is a huge amount of government support for district heating across the UK. It really is one of the low-hanging fruits, a key solution to decarbonising estates here in the UK. And there's over £1 billion worth of money being poured into district heating to support its implementation across the UK. But for NHS estates, it paves the way to get away from old fossil-fuelled plant rooms. I'm sure that Veolia probably needs no introduction, but I thought it'd be worth mentioning that we own and operate some of the largest and most significant district heating schemes in the UK, including some in Leeds and also the one in Southwark, London. And we've got over 60 heat networks and a full design, build, own, operate and maintain proposition, which supplies over 67,000 residents with low carbon heat. And later today I'll show you about all of the Veolia district heating networks and see whether it might be possible that you'd be able to connect into one of our heat networks as part of an NHS initiative. That's quite important. So I've been asked to first look at some of the possible quick win solutions for district heating and NHS estates. And because I was quite hungry when I wrote this, I identified those as low-hanging fruit. And the lowest hanging apples would be to simply connect into an existing district heating network that might be available that passes by your property. But it's not always possible. So there's some other really good apples that we might be able to use, and they would typically be as we've shown on the slide here, the kind of more known or proven solutions connecting into a biogas CHP, electric boilers. But what I wanted to specifically talk about today are some more interesting propositions for district heating, something a bit more innovative. So how about mine water? Here in the UK we've got this wonderful heritage of mine shafts that run below the ground that store lots of heat in them as they're warmed by the Earth's core. So the chance to be able to tap into heat that's below the ground using some of the mines that used to provide employment in the UK is a really exciting story, one that I particularly love. We've also got this wonderful opportunity around tapping into other geothermal opportunities. So below the ground, as we move further towards the Earth's core, is an abundance of hot water that's available, and it could be very possible that we could use that to heat an estate and a property with completely decarbonised energy below the ground. Fantastic story. But there's some more really interesting propositions where we really want to specialise at the moment, and that is the use of sewage. And yes, I did say sewage, and I'm going to talk about sewage heat recovery, so I really hope you've had your lunch. So there is an opportunity to use not just the main sewage pipe, which carries heat typically between 13 and 15 degrees, that you could tap into and use that decarbonised heat to heat a hospital or an estate or a district heating network. But if you were to tap into an existing utility main, you would have to pay for the cost of that energy. Perhaps we could actually use the NHS owned sewage pipes below the ground themselves and use that. So basically you're recovering your own heat from your own property, and therefore it's an absolutely free resource and a completely decarbonised heat opportunity. So very, very exciting. And for me, this is the kind of future to district heating. So in the sessions we've had so far with the Carbon Energy Fund, we've tried to explain how an NHS estate might first investigate an opportunity to connect it into an existing district heating network, and that would typically involve contact with a low carbon energy officer in a council to work together with a local authority to deliver a heat network, or you might want to approach a heat operator directly, just like many people come and approach us. Can we connect into your district heating network, Veolia? And where it's possible to do so in terms of economics, then we will always look to do that. And I think it's fair to say, and I think there's a few district heating professionals here right now, that it's a very friendly industry, and if there's a way of connecting you into a district heating network, we absolutely want to do that. And we're a friendly bunch, it's an approachable bunch, so please make sure if you have an opportunity to talk to your local heat network operator and see whether we can connect in. So this is, for me, this is where we get a little bit really interesting, converting wastewater heat into a district heating asset. And I wanted to take a little bit of a deeper dive into using wastewater heat for NHS estates. So you'll probably be aware Veolia is an operator of some significant wastewater treatment plants across the UK, including one in Scotland, which basically treats water for 850,000 people. That's, to put it in perspective, 300 million litres of waste every day, which is enough to fill 121 Olympic swimming pools. It's a lot of waste. Told you, I hope you had your lunch. But what I'm really excited about, and what we believe is a very exciting opportunity here in the UK, is to use some of that waste heat which is built up in those wastewater treatment plants to supply as decarbonised heat to buildings, estates, and as part of a district heating network. And very much believe that this could be the future. And we've got, including that, wastewater treatment plant works, main sewer lines, reservoirs, and even boreholes. They're all great opportunities to recover heat. So moving away from some of the older fossil fueled solutions to decarbonise heat. It's very, very interesting. And this is what I mentioned a little bit earlier. And I think it could be a really exciting opportunity specifically for NHS. And that is that you could potentially use the heat that's below the ground from the sewers as part of a decarbonisation agenda. And there are a few ways you could do that. Is one, we have a wet well system. So a wet well system collects the heat from the sewer and can then be used via a heat pump solution to provide heat to a district heating network. Or how about this? This is a pipe. It's just a normal utility pipe, but we can actually run these sewage collection pipes through the bore of the pipework and collect the heat. So if you were fortunate enough to be replacing main utility pipes, it could be a fantastic way to actually collect heat at the same time. And this is completely unexplored here in the UK at the moment. So you're hearing it first here at the Carbon Energy Fund presentation. Could be quite an exciting innovation and has potential across the UK. But it would also work particularly well for new development sites. So if we were building a new NHS estate or similar, perhaps we could utilise this kind of technology. And this is another kind of relatively new and unexplored heat recovery system that's linked to data centres. Really briefly, for those of you that aren't familiar with data centres produce vast amounts of heat from their microcomputers. And as part of running a data centre, the data centre also needs cooling. So data centres are cropping up all across the UK right now, and if we were fortunate enough to find out that there was a data centre being built close to an NHS estate, this may also present a great opportunity to recover waste heat from a data centre, which would otherwise be wasted and pumped to atmosphere. So I think it's worth considering, if you're considering your estate and opportunities for district heating, are there any data centres being built nearby in the future, or one nearby? I personally believe that this presents another great opportunity for the future for district heating, and it's a rather innovative way of capturing heat. I thought it was also worth mentioning, what do we see the future of district heating? And what are the advances in technology that we're likely to encounter in the future? And at the forefront of advancement, it will become increasingly important to integrate renewable technologies at every opportunity, harnessing the free power from the sun and the wind. So typically, with any district heating network, we'll try and capture the energy from the sun, from the wind, first and foremost. We will also see increasing amounts of artificial intelligence, remote monitoring and control, and it would even be down to the opportunity to use artificial intelligence to predict weather trends, and then being able to supply and demand based on that demand. So we'll see an increasing amount of technology come into district heating in the future. That's a very short overview of just some of the kind of future technologies we're likely to see in district heating. There's the great opportunity around recovering wastewater heat, data centre heat, and a few of the technologies that might go with it. I hope it's a little bit interesting and a little bit different. Happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you. Any dying questions about sewage heat recovery? So this gentleman just asked, is it happening in the... I mentioned it isn't really happening in the UK, and where it is happening, it's a really good question. So district heating here in the UK is still relatively in its infancy. It's becoming more and more popular. Our European counterparts, for instance in Scandinavia, have been doing district heating for absolutely decades, and they're way ahead of us. So they are certainly already recovering heat from data centres. There is some sewage heat recovery, although that's still a relatively unexplored concept across the rest of Europe. But for me, this is a really interesting area of growth for the future as we look to decarbonise heat. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you. Any other questions at all? Thank you very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed.